Hello, I'm Brent Shiratori, and this is Idea Marketing. If you're a marketer who's looking to make better decisions, whether it's deciding if you should invest in a media opportunity represented to you, determining how much of your budget to spend on digital advertising, or whether you should sponsor that high-profile event, this video is for you. Today, I'm reviewing How to Decide by Annie Duke. I'll be looking at it specifically through the lens of marketing strategy and decision making. Because here's the thing, marketing is one of the most uncertain disciplines in business. There are no absolutes, no simple equations that will guarantee people will buy your product, which makes Duke's insights about decision making, in spite of uncertainty, absolutely critical for every marketer. By the end of this video, you'll have a framework for making better marketing decisions, avoiding the cognitive traps that derail campaigns, and honestly evaluating what worked and what didn't. Let's dive in. Annie Duke is a former professional poker player turned decision strategist, so you know she knows her way around uncertain, ambiguous decisions. She argues that we're terrible at evaluating our own decisions. We judge decisions based on their outcomes rather than the quality of the decision-making process itself. And this is at the root of the problem for most marketers. Think about it. How many times have you seen a campaign get killed because the initial results were disappointing? On the other hand, how often do we pat ourselves on the back for a successful campaign without honestly examining whether our strategy was sound or if we just got lucky with timing? Duke introduces the concept of resulting, using the quality of a result to assess the quality of a decision. In psychology, this is called outcome bias, and it's everywhere in marketing. The book provides practical tools to separate decision quality from outcome quality, which is essential when you're dealing with the uncertainty and variables that define marketing strategy. Let me break down the key insights. First, let's talk about resulting. We mistakenly use results to judge decision quality. A campaign that doesn't hit targets isn't necessarily a bad decision, and a viral hit isn't necessarily due to a good strategy. This is known as resulting, and it makes it difficult to learn from our marketing experiences. We underestimate the role of luck and overestimate the role our decision played in the outcome. In marketing, good or bad luck could include everything from a random celebrity endorsement to a surprise thunderstorm during your photo shoot. Recognizing whether something happened because of good or bad planning is crucial. Next, let's talk about hindsight bias, also known as 20/20 hindsight. This is when we convince ourselves that an outcome was obvious or predictable after we know how it turned out. Of course, that influencer partnership didn't work. We should have seen that coming. I knew we were going to make that sale when we made that offer. I could just see it in his eyes. But did we really know that when we made the decision? Duke suggests keeping a knowledge tracker. Before finalizing any marketing decision, write down what you know and believe that's contributing to it. After the outcome, write down what new information you received. This helps you actually see what you missed versus what you're retrofitting into hindsight. Third, counterfactual thinking. Since we can't repeat marketing campaigns exactly to gather statistical data, Duke suggests using our imagination to think through plausible scenarios. What if we had launched a month earlier? What if we had chosen a different channel? This what-if thinking helps us to learn from single experiences. So here's Annie's 6-step decision model to make decision-making. Identify realistic potential outcomes, determine potential and negative payouts for each outcome, estimate the likelihood of the outcome, compare probabilities of outcomes you want versus those you don't, repeat for all considerations. Compare preferences, payoffs, and probabilities before deciding. This is incredibly powerful for marketing strategy because it forces you to think based on probabilities rather than preconceived notions. All right, now let's get a little more specific to marketing. How do these insights help you make better marketing decisions? Here are 6 tools you can use. Application 1, campaign post-mortems. Stop doing post-mortems based solely on performance metrics. Instead, use Duke's knowledge tracker approach. Before launching your next campaign, document what you believe about your audience, why you chose this channel strategy, what success looks like and why, and what external factors could influence outcomes. After the campaign, document what new information you learned. This helps you separate what you could have known from what was unknowable. Application 2, channel strategy decisions. Use this 6-step method when deciding where to invest your media budget instead of going with gut feel about what worked last time. Just systematically evaluate potential outcomes for each channel, positive and negative payoffs, not just reach and frequency, realistic probability of each outcome, and how your values and goals weigh against different outcomes. Application 3, creative strategy evaluation. Annie talks about perspective tracking, comparing inside and outside views. For creative decisions, ask yourself, if I were advising another brand in our category with our challenges, what would I recommend? Write that down. Then write your inside view. The differences can be very revealing. Application 4, testing and learning. Use counterfactual thinking to maximize learning from limited tests. When you're running an A/B test, don't just look at which version won. Ask, what if we had tested this variable instead? What if the timing had been different? What if we had used a different audience segment? This will build your pattern recognition. Application 5, the free roll strategy. Dukes mentions free rolls, decisions with minimal downside but significant potential upside. Marketing's full of these opportunities. It could be experimental social platform, a partnership with a micro-influencer, a new content platform you're curious about trying. If the downside is limited, these are obvious tests. Finally, application 6, mental contrasting. Before committing to a strategy, deliberately identify obstacles that could prevent success. Annie calls this mental contrasting. What could kill this campaign? What external factors are beyond your control? What internal capabilities might we be overestimating? If there's one thing I've learned in all my years in marketing, it's that every once in a while, everything is going to fall apart. There's no way to predict how or when, but it is inevitable. So you always have to be prepared with a contingency plan upon contingency plan. But here's what I think is the most important lesson from this book. Annie Dukes reminds us the absolute necessity to distinguish the signal from the noise. We create narratives, we craft stories, we distort the truth just enough to influence behavior. It's a powerful capability, but it can backfire when we start believing our own narratives about why campaigns succeed or failed. I've seen marketing teams convince themselves that a campaign was brilliant when it was actually external factors that drove most of the results. I've also seen teams abandon promising strategies because short-term metrics didn't immediately validate their approach. This book reminds us that we need to keep our head about, to follow our own North Star. It helps us to separate what we want to believe from what the data actually suggests. This isn't just about better decision-making, it's about maintaining integrity in a field where it's easy to lose sight of objective reality. As marketers, we wield significant influence over how people think and behave. So it's critical we use that power responsibly and effectively. Here are some additional takeaways based on what I learned from this book, as well as my 20 years in marketing. First, good marketing decisions can have bad outcomes, and bad marketing decisions can have good outcomes. Your job is to consistently make good decisions and let the law of large numbers work in your favor. Second, marketing is a game of numbers. There are no guarantees, only probabilities. Your role is to increase the odds of success while preparing for multiple scenarios. Third, despite what most people think, success in marketing means being honest with yourself. Separate luck from skill. Question your assumptions regularly. Don't get lost in the hype that you create. Fourth, test everything, but test smartly. Use counterfactual thinking to maximize learning from each test, even when you can't repeat exact conditions. And finally, embrace uncertainty instead of fighting it. Successful marketers who thrive are those who get comfortable making decisions with incomplete information while continuously updating their beliefs based on new evidence. This approach has transformed how I develop marketing strategies, evaluate campaigns, and build teams. It's the difference between reactive marketing and truly strategic thinking. How to Decide isn't specifically a book about marketing, but it actually might be the most important marketing book you'll read this year. Annie Dukes' tools for decision-making under uncertainty are exactly what marketers need to navigate an increasingly complex landscape. So stop judging your marketing decisions by their outcomes alone. Start building systems that help you make consistently better decisions. Learn from both successes and failures, and maintain intellectual honesty about what's working and why. This has been Idea Marketing. And remember, you don't need to buy more ads when you have better ideas. And better ideas come from better decision-making processes. If you thought this was helpful, hit that like button. Subscribe for more marketing strategy content, book reviews, and my insights from the last 20 years in the trenches.